Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the A.live podcast season 2, episode 12, I believe. So I just want to start off this episode by letting everyone know that I am not a professional in the field of recovery or mental health. So I just want to throw out a disclaimer that what works for me may not work for you. I hope that you take something from this podcast that you can apply to your life for the greater good of yourself and just better the world, And I was talking with my guest before this podcast started and we're going live, and just talking to her about how, I just want to step into what God has in store for me, and that's really where I'm at in my process. And I was talking to her about the struggles that I'm going through and finding my identity. And really, as I'm talking about it right now, my identity is in God. And so I need to lean on and rely on God more every day, because I can't do this without a God of my understanding. And whether that's Buddha, Allah, the sun, a program of recovery that works for you, of your choice, whether that is any of those things or something else, it doesn't matter. The only requirement is that, your higher power is loving. And what was that other part to that? Do you know? I haven't even introduced you yet.
Kind.
Loving and kind and greater than yourself. That's what it is. So, I hope that you get something out of this podcast. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce my guest to you today. Very excited to have her here on the podcast with me tonight. And her name is Desiree. So, Desiree, welcome. How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. For some reason, you're not on the screen. So just give me 1 second. I'm trying to figure it out. What the heck's going on? Oh, that's interesting. Fun. Technical difficulties. There you are. Okay. I got you. Sorry about that.
I could just use my voice.
That's all right. And it's funny, you were talking a little bit before we went live tonight how you thought this was just a audio podcast. So welcome. Yeah. It's actually video. Happy to have you here though tonight, Desiree. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me. I'm honored.
Absolutely. So, can you tell me, how did you find your way to recovery?
Oh, well, it came to a point where I was so broken. The long story short is I grew up in addiction. I saw my dad using, I saw my mom drinking. It was just complete insanity. I grew up with insanity. So when I was introduced to narcotics for the first time at age 12, I finally felt free. It was finally a time when I could escape however I was feeling on the inside. I've been in and out of psych wards when I was a kid. They tried giving me medication and all types of things. I started going to a special school for kids with behavioral problems. So at 12, I found drugs, and I used from 12 to 24. And in that time frame, I ended up in places I never thought I'd come back from. It got so bad that I stood on a corner. I sold my body. That's the reality for me, because I was dope sick all the time. It progressed. It constantly progressed. Of course, it started with weed. I was smoking pot and drinking, and then ecstasy, and then I found Oxycontin, right, and Xanax, and then cocaine, and it just was this downward spiral. I found recovery. And I didn't stay clean since then. I slept outside of a state-run detox for 2 days, because at the end of the road, I was homeless. I burned every bridge. I had nothing left, absolutely nothing. And I slept outside this state-run detox for 2 days. A bed opened up. Thank God a bed opened up for me. And they brought an H&I meeting in. And somebody shared, I didn't really hear my story at that point, but they said you never have to use again. I didn't really want to stop using, Aaron. I wanted to learn how to use successfully. I wanted to learn to use on the weekends, or maybe it was just this particular drug that's the problem, right?
Sure.
And I heard that message, and she hugged me, a hug that is out of this world. And I was hooked. I wanted this. I really did.
Yeah, man, that's powerful. It's a very powerful short message. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. It's been a great episode. I'm just kidding. No, but in all seriousness, like, wow, you really set the tone right now. That is the way you delivered that, that love you felt when you were introduced to the rooms. That woman, she embraced you, right? And she made you feel welcome. She made you feel a part of. And from then, what happened? What did you do after that? That wasn't the end. That was just the beginning, right?
It's just the beginning. And I'd love to say stayed clean since then, but that's not part of my story. Relapse is a part of my story, and I can call it a relapse because I came into recovery and I started doing the things that they suggested me to do, right? Go to the meetings, get the sponsor, work steps, be of service. Well, I started doing those things and I started feeling really good, right? And then a shift happened and I stopped being so vigilant in recovery. And I started putting this job that I had found and the money I made and all these things before. I was still acting in these behaviors I wasn't proud of. I was still acting in a way when I looked in the mirror, I still did not like myself, right? Like my spirit was just outgrowing these old behaviors, but I kept acting in the behaviors. And then the obsession came.
Wow.
Right? This obsession that I'm not worth this way of life. I'll never make it. And then I used, and then I kept using. And every time I went back out, it got worse and worse. But the best thing I did was I kept coming back. Like I didn't stay out there too long, right? Because I wanted this way of life so bad, but I just had this voice in my head and I had to just stay put. I had to just stay and wait. I love the saying, don't leave 5 minutes before your miracle, because that is so relevant to me, because I stayed. No matter what voice came, I mean, finally, but up until that point, I kept running out the door, using at the meetings. I would go use in the freaking bathroom, right? And then walk out, and if they were giving out a key tag, I'd go pick one up. I didn't care.
Yeah.
So sick and self-centered with the disease.
Yeah. Wow.
Finally, I went to a meeting high on 4/20/2012. I was in the meeting high, and they said, "Don't be shy if you're high. Get the white key tag." And something greater than myself got me up out of that seat, and I haven't used since.
Wow, that's beautiful. You talked about a lot of amazing things there. You talked about your spirit was growing, but you kept acting out in the same behaviors that you were before, and then man, there was just so much in that segment that you just talked about. Is just like grasped me and pulled me by the heartstrings, because I've been there. I've been there. I experienced that. Celebrating fake clean time. Been there, done it all. It's that disease is a monster. Is a monster. And I know you're big on self-love. We talked about it before the podcast. And what do you do today? How do you stay in this process?
Well, it's funny. It was a lot of work. One of the most painful suggestions that were given to me is, so I came into recovery this last time, right? And I still struggled with the self-image. I still looked in the mirror and I saw this hooker, this addict, just this junkie person. And I really despised who I was. I despised the things that I had done in active addiction. I never thought I could live with being with me, because I had caused so much damage to my body, to myself, to the people around me. I struggled with the self so much. I was never enough. I never looked attractive, the whole thing. And about 60 days clean, this woman says, I want you to look in the mirror and say nice things to yourself. I want you to look right into your eyeballs, right into your pupils. And I want you to say that you are beautiful. You are worth this way of life. You can do this. All that good stuff. And I remember, oh my gosh, when I think about it, it gives me chills, because I remember standing in front of that mirror and looking at myself and saying that, and the tears pouring out of my eyes, because I never thought I would believe it. Let's fast forward to a point. But I didn't give up. That's the hit here, right? No matter what, I don't give up. I persevere. I come in swinging. You know what I mean? And now when I look in that mirror, I believe those things. You know, recovery has given me an opportunity to be this phenomenal, beautiful, kind woman, right? I came in this broken little girl that despised. I hated how I talked, how I looked. I was so dramatic and extra. I am passionate, loving, right? I am beautiful. My insides radiate on the outsides. And when I say that, I believe that most days, you know? So it's all the journey. The steps are the magic.
And we'll talk about that in a second, Desiree. I want to get into the steps.
Fired. Sorry.
You're fired up? Hey, we'll get to it. Listen, you talked about, you know, looking in the mirror and not being able to accept yourself. And you talked about perseverance, coming in swinging, right? And I want to talk about the difference between perseverance and the difference between endurance and perseverance. You know, and endurance, from my understanding, is just, you know, getting through something to get through it, right? Staying clean just to get to the next day, right? But endurance is embracing it and coming in strong with your head held high and taking on the day.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
And the reason I wanted to talk about is I read a verse out of a book a couple days ago, and it was talking about endurance and perseverance. And I was sitting there with my loving girlfriend, and we were talking about the difference, and we were trying to make sense of it and trying to figure out like how we can apply it to our lives. And, you know, it was funny, after we read that, a couple days in a row, we kept hearing perseverance, persevere this, persevere that. And we didn't hear endurance. And now you're saying it, you know, and I just wanted to focus on that for a minute. But let's get back to the step work, you know. Let's talk about that, because that's what helps. That's where the growth happens. That's where the change happens. And that's what I'm most interested in, is finding out how I can get better with Aaron, finding out who I really am. What is my identity in this process? You know, who am I? Because for so long, ladies and gentlemen, I woke up and just went through the motions. I endured just to get to the next day. I had to get my fix. I had to put my shoes on, face the world, as scared as I was, and still can be some days. Fear, wrapped up in that fear. And it's crippling. And it impedes complacency in my life, you know. And so how can I not be complacent? How can I move forward and persevere, right? How can I move forward with that? And like I talked about with you a little bit before we went live, is I'm on step 3 and I'm struggling, right? I'm struggling turning my will and my life over to the power, you know, greater than me, to restore me. And I want to talk about the steps. So, what's your experience like? Start from the beginning.
Oh, I was vigilant. Like I said, I came in just fighting for this because I really wanted this way of life. And I worked the 1, 2, and 3 definitely set the foundation. You know, they were the groundwork for the rest of the steps, for the rest of my program, my recovery, and they're steps that I go to on a daily basis. You know, I love the principles behind the steps, right? Like the first step for me is a daily thing. You know, the powerlessness, the surrender, the honesty. You know, it was the first time I could really get honest. I'm an addict. I cannot use successfully, right? Like I've tried. I just can't. I surrender. Right. You know, I surrender to this. I'm willing to do what it takes right now, right? And the surrender comes in waves. You know, I'm willing to surrender a little here, but not this. And I will talk about that in the third. And then the second step, finally having some hope that this insane thinking that there is something greater than myself. You know, my relationship with something greater than me, or whatever that God thing. I always thought my higher power was punishing. I was born by mistake. I was a victim of all the circumstances. I didn't really have a relationship with God. The only praying I did was every night praying to God to not wake up the next morning. You know, so here I was, by the time I'd gotten to step 2, I was finally waking up not needing a substance. So I started to believe that there was something, There was something working in my life. I was hearing these stories in the rooms, and I was hearing people share things, and I was like, wow, they're staying clean. They've been clean this long. If they can stay clean, maybe I can too. You know, there has to be something greater. So the second step, and I go back to that because I get caught up in insanity now today. There's many reasons why I could feel insane, and I come right back to step 2. I believe there is something greater than myself that can restore me to sanity. I believe it. I have tangible evidence. You know, and the second step also says that there will be pain in recovery. There will be pain, but we don't bear it alone. We don't go through the pain alone. And there's something that happens after the pain when we stay clean. This like feeling of empowerment, and like I built an even closer relationship with God through the pain. You know, step 3, so I was talking to you about an assignment. So it's all about surrendering, right? So I had this assignment to the shoebox. I took this box and I put all the things throughout the day that I wanted to surrender. Behaviors, people that bothered me, situations, all the stuff. I'd put on a piece of paper and I'd put it in this box. And then I'd push the box away. Take my will in my life, guide me in my recovery. You know, just push the box away. So before I was moving here 2 years ago, I popped the box out and I looked at the defects, the situations, the people. Aaron, they weren't a thought anymore.
That's crazy.
So that was evidence that when I turn it over, God takes care of it. Right? And I'm in this whole new level of freedom of turning over in my life. Oh, I can't even describe like this whole new level of this freedom, you know, with step 3 is just the
man.
Yeah.
If that isn't hope in a shoebox, for lack of a better, you know, that's powerful, you know, and what you did there with that box is like you essentially did an outward action to make an internal change. And like, even if that wasn't the goal at the time, like looking back in hindsight and opening that box, man, I mean, how relieving must have that felt?
Oh, it was incredible. And to look back on that, I mean, we're talking about a few years later, of course, right?
Sure.
But to look, and I was like, wow, I haven't even thought about this stuff. This isn't even a defect. I have a new one, but this isn't it anymore. You know, like that is my higher power taking it, you know? And I remember like those things used to really bother me. I would obsess about them and would leave this heaviness in my heart and in my spirit.
Yeah.
And comes to a point like, when am I willing to stop suffering? Now I have a choice.
That's right.
You know, it's all about the choices I make on a daily basis. I have a choice. I mean, they're going to give it over, take it, because I know when you take it, it works, you know? It works better than me trying to hold on to control. You know, I'm always trying to control and hold on to something. Just freaking let it go.
Yeah, and you know, I pray that 3rd step prayer every day. And it's almost like I'm waiting for the evidence to happen. I'm not believing it. I'm not putting my faith behind my words. I'm enduring the prayer. Like, you know, not going in there like expecting anything, you know. It's almost like what is it? What's that term? Rabbit hole prayer or foxhole prayer or something? What does that even mean? I've heard that term before. Do you know?
It's just like an empty, like praying when you're in a crisis. You know, please God, come back, but not really believing in your heart. Like I just.
Yeah, and it's not. I don't even really feel like I'm in a crisis, but like I guess the crisis is that identity crisis that I'm going through. Like I've been talking about it this whole season, you know, like finding out who Aaron is, you know, because I had these preconceived notions of who I thought you wanted me to be. So I embody that. But then, you know, it's funny. The season finale guest on this season would be June 7th. He told me one time, he was like, it's funny how God used a panda bear to teach you a lesson, you know, about who I was, you know, and about who I thought I was, and like, you know, take that away from me, and like, what am I left with? I'm stripped down. Like I felt stripped down, Desiree. I felt that like last fall, and like, so, but that gave me a new beginning in recovery to rebuild myself and recreate this beautiful life that I have today, just 6 months later, 7 months later. And, you know, I'm embracing it and I'm persevering in this life, you know, but I'm still praying that prayer of endurance, you know, God, take my will in my life, guide me in my recovery and show me how to live. And I'm just like, it's funny. It's probably going to happen for me like it happened for you. I'm going to look back 3 months ahead and be like, man, look at how far I've came in 3 months. But right now it doesn't feel like anything's changing. And that could be, I would venture to say that could be that during this coronavirus pandemic, we've kind of been asked to sit still, right? And so I'm sitting still and I'm experiencing things that I really didn't have time to think about before. And I'm thinking like, you know, so it's you know, discouraging or disheartening in a way that I had to sit through these feelings, but it's making me and it's molding me. And God is, I believe, you know, that God is molding me into what he wants me to be so that he can use me to do whatever it is that he wants me to do. And what that is right now, I couldn't tell you, but maybe we're doing it right now. Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows?
But yeah, I appreciate you sharing about steps 1, 2, and 3. If you don't mind continuing on in your step working process, or if you're still on steps, okay, great.
So it's funny. I just worked a 4-step. I finished it on Friday, and this particular 4-step. So 4-step for me is all about the courage to just put it down. You know what I mean? Like, I had no fear coming to the 4-step. Just personally for me, I was at a place where I wanted to get rid of all this stuff that I had bottled up inside for so long that I was willing to just put it to paper. You know, that's all that you ask of me is just to be honest and take that inventory. I mean, it's the stuff that I had already done. Let me go ahead and put it down. You know what I mean? Let me get rid of it. And again, with the 4-step, there's just so much freedom. And this last 4-step that I did it in a particular area in my life, the relationship I had. Man, because I had this built-in forgetter, you know, where I only get caught up on the good things when that thing leaves my life. I only focus on the good things and question, why did it leave? It wasn't supposed to. It was so grand and beautiful. Why would that leave? But here I was taking searching in fearless moral inventory of the situation and the relationship, and come to find out it wasn't supposed to be, you know. When I finally back to 3 and let go, and I only can know that by taking that inventory, the freedom that comes from that, you know, putting it on paper and just letting go and having this blueprint of how my life looked, you know, as opposed to just my thought process, because I get lost in my thoughts. I have these blockers that I block out the painful memories, and I only want to remember the good. And just I can relate it to using too. You know, when I've wanted to get high on my journey, you know, I've been clean 8 years. I've wanted to use once or twice, and I forget. You know, so it's like very important for me not to forget where I came from, because if I forget what I was told, if I forget where I came from, I'm bound to repeat it. You know, so I don't want to repeat that lifestyle. I want to continuously change, and I can only change if I have the inventory of the behaviors that weren't working for me. You know, step 5, I'll take that all day. There is an individual, not only my higher power, but there is a person on this planet that is willing to sit there and listen to me share my inventory. I was so grateful for it.
So before you move on too much further, because there may be some listeners that don't know what the step working process is. Essentially, step 1 is we are powerless over our addiction, that our lives have become unmanageable. So step 2 is about coming to believe in a power greater than ourselves that can restore us to sanity. Step 3 is about turning our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand him, right? So step 4 is taking a moral and searching fearless inventory of ourselves. And then step 5 is about sharing that with somebody, correct? What does step 5 say exactly?
We share with, I would take a searching and fearless inventory. Step 5, we share that inventory. I can't believe I can't remember it.
That's all right. We don't have to verbatim, but so essentially what it is if you want to simplify it, I can't. He can. I
Mm-hmm.
think I will let him.
That's right.
Here's what's wrong with me, right?
Yeah.
Let me share that with someone, okay? So,
Yeah.
and you talk about freedom. What was your experience with the third and the fourth step and the fifth step? Where did the most freedom come? Or did you experience it all the way? I know for me, I've experienced freedom along my entire journey, but
Mhm.
before we went live, you talked about a little bit about the freedom you experienced in step 3. Have you been through all 12 steps, by the way?
A few times, yes.
Okay, so where's the freedom at? Where's the real hitter for this process, or is it just the whole experience?
It's the whole experience. I mean, it's different levels of freedom. You
Okay.
know, struggling in this area of my life, then I apply this step, the principles behind this step, and I reach that level of freedom with that situation in my life. You know, the ultimate freedom. I'll never forget the feeling of accomplishing all 12 steps,
Hmm.
completing the 12 steps.
Yeah.
That was just, and then she said, all right, let's do it again. You know what I mean?
For like, I can't even imagine finishing all 12 steps in. When I was using, I was like, there's no way, there's no
Right.
way. It's scary. Even now, I'm like, I experience fear. Like, how does one overcome that? How does one really just dive into that? Did you ever experience that fear, get stuck, or be complacent in your process? And what was it like? How'd you get out of that?
This last fourth step, just a month ago, because I had to write this whole inventory of, the life that we lived, and I went through the roller coaster of emotions, and I stopped. I didn't want to do it anymore. I was so done feeling how I was feeling. I felt like I was on the other side of this thing, and now my spot suggests that I have to go relive all this stuff all over again. Come
Mm.
on, I don't
Yeah.
want to. The hesitation, the like, I don't want to feel anymore. Make it go away.
Right. And that's when it's scary, because it's like, make it go away. I don't want to feel. Like, that's when addicts will reach for something else to take them outside of themselves, and fortunately we have the steps to reach for now. We don't
Yeah,
have to choose to live out on shortcomings or defects of character today.
right.
Yeah, so what an amazing process this is. All right, so back into it. Step 5, you're sharing your what is it that you're sharing exactly there?
Sharing my
Resentments?
I'm sharing the whole, yep, my resentments, the things I have done wrong. Um, Gosh, like how I've done a few four steps in all different areas. My first four step was really about my childhood, digging deep into my childhood and the parts that my family played, and my father and my mother, and all the parts that I played in those situations. Active addiction. With the resentments and why I have the resentments, and wait a minute, what part did you play in the resentment? You know what I mean? I had to let go of the victim role. I was such a victim, and they kept saying victims don't recover, and I just had this victim mentality, and like having that inventory, like I played a part in a lot of the situations. I felt like the victim, so I was able to
Sure.
chip away that mentality.
Oh
You know,
man, that's cool. That's such a different perspective than I would have imagined. So thanks for sharing that. That's
yeah,
cool. That gives me hope. So
yeah, no problem.
so what is what's step 6? What is that step?
Ooh, step 6. I love step 6. Um, Defects of character. What does the step say? Gosh, I wish I had a literature with me. I can't
Look,
believe I'm forgetting.
that's all right. Let me see if I can pull it up here.
We admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6. See, now I remember step 5.
Right. Hold on, I'm
um,
pulling it up.
yeah, let's pull that up. That'd be very helpful.
Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Okay, step 4 made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, we admitted to God and to ourselves. I'm sorry, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. So that's what we were talking about, sharing that pain, sharing those, situations or the people that we have harmed or harmed us, sharing that with someone. So now we're on to step 6, which says we are entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Most important word there, all. I mean, because we can hold on to certain character defects that we're comfortable with, and then, how much growth is there. So being able to let go of all of those character defects is so important.
Yeah.
So what was that
and becoming
like?
willing to do so. The other key word is, because like you said, we want to hold on to some, and there were some defects that I wanted to hold on to because they made me feel good. In early recovery, a lot of lust. I didn't want to get rid of that. I loved feeling good, there were a few that I clung on to. And like I said before we started this thing, is the whole my spirit outgrowing things. It came to a point where I wasn't comfortable in my own skin acting out in those defects. It was no longer okay for me to do those things. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror and be okay with myself anymore.
Yeah.
So entirely ready definitely means having, I am entirely ready. I'm no doubt about it. I'm not going to hold on to any more. Here are the defects of character. I know there's a higher power that can remove them, that it's possible. I was put on assignment for step 6. I had to put the defects on one side, the assets to the defects on the other side. And on every day for 30 days, I had to pull out the card with the defect and the asset. And I had to practice the asset anytime that I wanted to act in the defect.
Oh, wow.
I was so aware of how easy it was for me to act on the defect. This whole new level of awareness of the defects that I had, and how much more difficult it was at the time to apply the asset. But that's why I had the assignment for as long as I did, because I finally got into a practice. Everything takes practice. We practice these principles in all our affairs. It says we don't do the principle, we practice them to the best of our ability. And that was me with the 6th step. As I started practicing the assets to all these things that were hindering me, I started to live differently. I started to feel different about myself. And defects weren't serving me a positive purpose anymore. They were serving me no good. I want to get rid of it. God, take it. I mean, if there's something greater than myself that can take things that no longer serve me good, I'll take it. I'm entirely ready. Here it is.
That's great. And what step 6 reminds me of? Step 2. We came to believe in a power greater than ourselves that could restore us to sanity. So what is step 6 talking about? It's talking about, let's go back to that. We made it, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. It sounds to me like a lot like step 2.
Right.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then, so do you have anything else to say about that step, or can we move on to step 7? Yeah, go ahead.
You brought up the second step being similar. I had to work a second step before I could even go to a 6, right? Because the 6th step of all these defects and these painful things about myself. At step 2, I'm finally believing that there is something greater. By the time I get to step 6, I know there's something greater than myself that's going to remove the defects. Because if I don't have something greater, then the defects, I feel like they're going to just stay stuck. And then I'm going to have this heightened awareness of these negative things about myself. I can't just have awareness of negative without any hope that there's something greater.
Wow. That's cool. That's deep. I love how that you're elaborating on these things in a way that makes sense to me. And I hope there's other people and listeners out there that are getting as much out of Desiree's message as I am. I'm grateful for you being on this podcast tonight. So let's move on to step 7. And step 7 says, we humbly asked him, with a capital H, God, to remove our shortcomings. So it sounds, again, it almost sounds like step 3. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. I'm seeing I'm seeing a pattern here that I'm noticing for the very first time, which is
Right.
exciting because it's like giving me a different perspective on recovery.
I
And
love
that's,
that.
yeah, it's great. It's great. Super pumped.
I
So
love
talk,
that we're just talking about this,
yeah.
like we're just talking about this process together. This is so cool.
Yeah, it's a lot different than a meeting format where one person can speak at a time. And thanks for letting me share. And my name is Aaron, and I'm an addict, and
Right,
this is what I'm
right.
going through, and no cross talking, and that's fine. That's the way that program works, But sometimes we need to connect on a different format, a different platform, or a different level to gain that new perspective, and that's why we have the sponsorship, right? That's why we have the fellowship, and we do things that we wouldn't do in active addiction to get out of our comfort zone and learn to grow. And that could be why we just do simple things like go to a cookout, let's have a karaoke event, let's have a magic show, and do these things in recovery to learn how to have fun again, but also learn how to communicate with people and get perspectives from people. And man, I love recovery. It's, and I miss going to meetings. I really miss it.
Me too. Me too.
We'll get back there though. The Zoom platform has given life, has kept these programs of recovery alive during this pandemic.
Yeah. I'm more proud to be an addict now than I ever was before.
Yeah.
How creative we are. When we want to stay clean, we go to any lengths to stay clean. And even if it means virtual meetings, like we're
Yeah.
making it.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. It's very true. We will go to any length to get our drugs too when we're using.
Yes.
So we carry on certain assets of character when we get clean. Like we're determined people. Our drive is undeniable. If we put our mind to something, we're some of the most creative, smartest people. But we're also, on the flip side, in active addiction, we're some of the most deceitful, conniving. Yeah, the list goes on. Just like I could focus on the assets of character, I could focus on defects of character. And it's important to be aware of them. And that's what step 4 is about. Step 4 is about that. Making a list of not only your defects, but your assets. But I don't want to jump around too much. I want to move forward into step 7, which again, just to revisit that, states that we humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. This sounds like a step of freedom right here. Talk about your experience. What happened? What happened when you...
So in literature, it says humility is as crucial as staying clean as food and water is to staying alive.
Wow.
So
okay.
I mean, by the time I got to step 7, I was practicing humility. I had moments in my recovery when I wasn't humble, I was humiliated, and it came to a point where by step 7, it was just like this peace. I can't really put into words, but it's a feeling I had. I feel like steps 3, 7, 11 are really the God steps, the feeling steps. So for me, in my experience, I had a lot of feelings that I can't really describe for 3, 7, 11. But for 7 was I was God, like going back to step 6, how I said, God, take them. The humility, the patience. It took patience. Step 7 was about patience, that, hey, my defect may not be removed tomorrow, but I have the ability to ask my higher power to remove it and be patient. My God will remove that defect when my higher power sees fit.
Wow.
And I go back, not to be mean to myself, to still be patient with myself, with my higher power, continuously pray, be connected, all of those kind of things. So step 7 was definitely freedom for me. It's a feeling more than a description that I can possibly give,
Yeah. I mean, you talked about patience and you talked about humility. I get frustrated, I get frustrated in this process. Like, I'm an addict, I want what I want and I want it now. And I don't want this defect of character get it away from me, get it off of me. It's a monkey on my back. You know, it's showing in this, it's rearing its ugly head in this area of my life, and I'm embarrassed about it, quite frankly. It makes me look bad. Other people can see it more than I can see it most of the time. We can't spot self-deception, though, you know, on our own. That's why we have to have a sponsor. But I'll tell you what, Desiree, when I don't necessarily see my defects of character at all until someone points it out to me, and then it's amplified. I'm like, man, you know, just like even as little as, this isn't a defect of character, but as little as like picking out a shirt to wear on the podcast tonight. I was like, babe, do you like this shirt? I like this color. She's like, I was like, you hate it. Oh my God, you hate it. You know, let me go change the shirt. What do you think? A blue shirt? A blue shirt? You think blue will look good? You know, and it's just like, I can make something out of nothing, you know? And I'm kind of getting off. I feel like I'm going off on a tangent here, but you know, it's just an example of how I just have to have patience with myself. And I'm not perfect. I have to accept that, you know? But as an addict, I strive for perfection. And, you know, it's okay to be humble and practice that humility. And, you know, what I find is really helpful, and what I read an article on depression just the other day during this coronavirus pandemic, and how it's, you know, skyrocketing, and all these things are skyrocketing: mental health, addiction, drug abuse, depression, divorce. All these things are going up right now, you know, because we're confined and we're taking a look at ourselves, and we don't like what we see, and we take it out on other people, you know, and it causes all these issues. And so the thing I read about depression, which I've also heard in the rooms, is that when we help someone else, it takes our mind off of us, and it relieves us from that depression. And I heard a long time ago this definition of humility that kind of just stuck with me. And that definition is, humility is when someone else's needs become greater than your own. You know, and that freedom from self-consciousness, or whatever, self-pity, self-righteousness, self-destruction, all these things that begin with self can be relieved of when we just take the time to help someone else. And it's so easy, but we lose sight of it and become so self-absorbed.
Right. Man,
this has been a really revealing conversation, and it's like very grateful, you know, very grateful for this podcast. I've learned so much, and I can't wait till the season's over. Not because I'm like ready for it to be over, but I can't wait to start at episode 1 and watch back the whole way through to episode 15 and see the growth and the change in myself. Yes. You know? Yeah. It's like that thing you were talking about earlier, putting your defects in a box, putting your resentments, situations in a box, and then pulling them back out. I can't wait to hear about the situations and problems I was talking about on episode 1. And here we are, episode 12, and those problems are probably dissolved, gone.
Your own little box, your podcast.
Right, yeah. And that, you know, this platform has given me amazing opportunities to speak with amazing people in recovery like yourself. So thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the next step. Oh, I also pulled up the definition of humility as Google describes it: a modest or low view of one's own importance, humbleness, right? So that's a good definition right there. Really, that is the definition, actually. So, but step 8 talk says that we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all.
Yeah. So the first 8th step that I did, it's funny, the first 8th step I did, I remember when I had met with my sponsor, and I had this list. I had this list of all the people I'd caused harm. What harm did I cause? all that kind of stuff. And even the financial, right? The financial amends that I needed to, all the financial harm that I had done to myself. Da, da, da. And I remember leaving myself off the amends list, right? And my spouse says, where's you? You know, because thinking of me making an amends to myself was so foreign.
Wow.
You know, like I think about myself. I was thinking about all the other people. And listen, this is why the steps are in order for a reason, because I remember when I first got clean, I used to babysit. This woman, she's very special in my life today. She's in recovery today, but back then she wasn't. And freaking, I used to watch her kids and smoke crack in the car with her kids while babysitting them.
Wow.
Like, it was really, so I got clean and I wanted instant gratification. I wanted everything better immediately. I was clean maybe 2 weeks and I had called her and I said, hey, so listen, I want to say I'm sorry for doing this and this and all this stuff, and I had caused more harm.
Yeah.
You know, that's why, like, the steps are in order for a reason, and that's why I have a sponsor to guide me through this situation, you know. So I had to put her back on an 8th step by the time I had gotten there for the amends that I attempted to make.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that something else?
Yeah, it was a crazy experience. So I put myself on the list, you know, and I started thinking of ways I can really, it's okay. So I'm fast forwarding here because the most important thing that I was taught is don't even think about the amends. Just think of the people that you had harmed. Don't think about step 9, which is actually making the amends. Just think of, stay in the moment, stay on step 8. It's just making a list. We'll talk about all that stuff later. Right now, make a list. Put down on a piece of paper the people that you had caused harm. What harm did you cause? What did you do? You know, so it's just that simplicity of it. You know, because I could jump in the future and all. And no. Just stay right here. So it was important for me to just make a list.
Sure. And that's it sounds pretty straightforward, like not a whole lot of well, I guess it is. I mean, I don't know. I don't have an experience on it yet, so I'm not even going to talk about it. But if there's no more to talk about on step 8, and I'm not trying to rush you, but it sounds like you're ready. Okay, step 9. Here we go. Bada bing. We made a list of people all we had harmed. Step 8. Bada bing, bada boom. Next step. We made a step 9 says that we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others.
So Spots had me break it down. She had me separate 3 lines: the immediate amends, the sometime amends, and then the never amends. So I took that list that I wrote and I started breaking down the immediates and everything, and see the freedom of step 9, see a whole other different experience of freedom, the baggage that I carried. Let me just share a real quick story about a 9th step. Okay, so my grandmother, she saw me through the worst of active addiction. I mean, I threatened her life on a voicemail. Don't ever do that on a voicemail, because I went through court, the restraining order thing. It was so silly. I was so crazy.
Yeah.
She saw me through the worst, and the best amends that I made was I picked up a white key tag. That was first. Then not only the amends to myself, to my family, to people who cared about me, but to society as a whole. So when I first got clean, I got that key tag. Bullshit. I started living differently. That was the best amends that I could have ever made.
Absolutely.
Grandma, I started the living amends by showing up to her house, bringing her. I got 30 days clean, Grandma. You know, and then I brought her. By 6 months clean, I was able to bring her groceries. You know, the whole thing, the living amends. Well, there were some things she didn't know. Grandma had gotten sick, and she was on my sometime. Grandma gotten sick, and my sponsor says, listen, I want you to visit that 9th step. And I had already moved further in the step process. I went and visited this, I went back to it. I made the amends to my grandmother, and she died a week later. You know, but the freedom and that recovery has given me to be able to face her and make that amends before she passed away to the next life, right?
Yeah.
I was able to look like a woman and not just say I'm sorry, right? Like that, I wasn't allowed to say sorry at any of my amends. I had to say, this is my amends to you. I did this wrong. This is my amends, right? I couldn't, and if it was in financial amends, all the financial damage I had done, I don't have that financial burdens anymore, thank God, that because I amended that. That was the amends to myself,
Absolutely. Yeah.
The freedom of my grandma, it was just the coolest experience. It was one of the coolest experiences. My brother started using. I introduced him to drugs, right? He was the first one I used with. I was able to help my brother go through treatment, get into the recovery, guide him there, give him a place to stay once he was clean a little while, and he celebrated 5 years or 6 years. I'm sorry, my brother's at 6 years clean. That was the amends process.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you were a shining example in his life. It sounds like you had a big influence on his life in general, whether that was Big Sis, and then it was, my using buddy and showing him how to get clean. Like that's amazing. That's cool. And so how long do you have clean? Forgive me. I didn't ask that. I'm sorry. Say that again.
Celebrated 8 years. 8 years clean last month.
8 years. Wow. Last month. Congratulations. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
That's
Thank
super.
you.
That's, that's a leap. It feels like a leap from where I'm at today. And I'm in my third year, and I can't wait to see what the next 5 years, to see what my life looks like as long as I stay clean,
Mm-hmm.
I just got to put one foot in front of the other and just remember it's about today, and that's.
Imagine it being right now. It's going to be so much even greater.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I mean, I've experienced so much greatness, so many monumental points in my life that I'm just so happy to have experienced. At first it was cleaning up the wreckage, like, getting the diagnosis for hepatitis C, and then being vigilant and going to doctors and finally getting 6 months clean and getting accepted for the insurance. And now it's not in my blood. That was the first big step, like reward of recovery, getting rid of the hep C, it's possible,
For sure.
There's all kinds of things, I'm just like looking back. It's just amazing. So anyways, let's get to the next step. Step 10 says, we continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So that sounds like an everyday thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Principle perseverance that we were talking about, admitting their wrongs. Gosh, I love step 10. I apply step 10 on a daily basis. It's not like just a one-time shot that I just round the step and it's done. It's like this living thing on a day-to-day basis. I have this inventory. We have, in recovery, we're given tools, and I was given this tool to utilize where it asks me these questions. Did I call my sponsor? Did I go to a meeting? Did I pray? Did I meditate? Did I call someone in recovery? So it's like, and then after I wrote on that inventory for a little while, it just became a habit. Like, oh, well, I want to call my sponsor today so I don't have to say no again tonight, right? Or I should go to a meeting. And my life is so much based on all the little decisions, and all it takes is one decision, right?
Yeah.
One decision, good decision, bad decision, just one. And it's like all my little decisions base like my future. Do I go to a meeting? Do I not? Do I call someone or not? Do I pick up the step work or do I not? Right? And what are the results going to be? If I do it anyway, if I call them anyway, or I pick up the step work anyway, I don't know what I'm going to feel like after, but I know what I can end up feeling like if I don't. Mm-hmm. The immediate amends, being a person of recovery and having a 10-step in my life is like, when I do wrong, because I do, I'm human. You know what I mean? I fall short. I lash out sometimes when when I'm feeling up, or I see something about somebody when it doesn't feel right. Mm-hmm. But I have this program where I can make that immediate amends. I don't live in it. I don't live in I don't want to keep adding. Because of a 10-step, I can work an 11 and I don't have to keep adding to my 8th because of step 10. So it's beautiful.
Yeah, it sounds like it. You keep your side of the street clean with step 10, right? You don't
Yes.
have to
Street sweep.
yeah. Wow, that's cool. So step 11, what does that one say?
Mm.
It says, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. So what does all that mean? That's a lot of like beyond my understanding type stuff right there. You know? Cuz
Step
hold on
11.
real quick before you dive into that. I was talking with another guest I had on a couple of weeks ago he was talking about the difference between prayer and meditation. So I kind of would like to hear your experience with the difference and what is one versus the other. Just like we talked about endurance and perseverance. What is prayer? What is meditation to you? What's that mean to you?
Mm. Well, okay, so for me, I mean, there's literature that states prayer is asking, meditation is listening. For me, prayer is just this freedom of like, I could talk to my higher power at any point of the day, at any moment, at any time. Like I can say whatever I need to say to something greater than myself. You know, meditation is more of like an effort. For me, meditation is more of an effort of being conscious in a moment, you know, of like, I have a 3-year-old son, gifts of recovery, right? He's a beautiful little boy, but I have to make an effort to get up earlier to connect with my higher power in a sense of meditation. I can pray right next to him all day, you know, but I find it very difficult for me to come to a place of like meditation of consciousness, of being with just God like that, with him next to me. You know what I mean? So for me, meditation is more of an effort for my higher power. It's more of an effort for myself to find peace within myself. I love step 11 because it tells us that we can be content with or without a partner, with or without the approval of others, with or without money, property, prestige. Like we can be content. It tells us that God's will for us is to be happy, to be clean, to be free. Like that is the 11th step for me, is just having this inner peace. No matter what circumstances happen around me, no matter the job, the guy left, it doesn't freaking matter. I can be content. I can feel whole and complete within myself, knowing that I have something greater than myself, and I'm making effort to build on that relationship. I'm seeking through prayer and meditation to build and keep that feeling that I can be content, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting to me that it's like the step 11 is the first time that the word meditation comes out in the steps themselves. Now, whether or not that means it's the first time that they are mentioned in our literature before we get to step 11, I don't know. But the reason I say that is because I think the reason that I'm having so much trouble with, I think it was just revealed to me by some sort of maybe, I don't know, God of my understanding, you know, that meditation is what is lacking in my relationship with God because I'm not taking the time to listen to what he has for me. I'm just talking to him and asking him for this and that. And I'm not spending that time to listen because I love the way that you described it. But the person that described meditation versus prayer to me a couple weeks ago said that prayer is talking to God, meditation is listening to God. And it was so, you know, I heard it then, but it's like sinking in now. You elaborated on it a way that revealed to me what is lacking here. So I believe that my higher power works through other people, right? So I want to thank you for being that messenger of God and revealing that to me today. So it's like, I can pray all I want. If I'm not listening, what's the point?
Yes.
So the next part, yeah. And I mean, I'm just flabbergasted. I don't even know what that word means, but it sounds like it fits right now. I don't know. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. Right. And that's what I was just talking about, that conscious contact with God as we understood him. Right. So like I said earlier, my idea of God may not be your idea of God. And that's okay. As long as that higher power is greater than you and is loving. Those are the only two requirements.
Yep.
So
I love recovery allows us an opportunity to have our own understanding,
yeah,
our own relationship. Yeah.
yeah, that's what it's all about, finding what works for you. Because if you can't understand it, and you're not going to get anything out of it. Or if you can't make it work for you, because like I said in the very beginning, that disclaimer, what works for me may not work for you.
Right.
You're going to compare yourself out of the rooms, and you're going to end up with another bottle to your lips, or a needle hanging out of your arm, or a crack pipe in your mouth.
Yep.
Listen for the similarities. Keep it simple. Don't listen for the differences and compare yourself out of this thing, because I did that. It availed me nothing but more pain and misery. I found a person or a couple people that I was able to relate with, and hung on to their coattails and just went along for the ride. And I did that for my first 1.5 years of recovery. And it was great. But I found myself putting other people on pedestals too. And people will let you down, right? God will not let you down. So it's important that we don't misconstrue the idea of God and put that another person in that position. I heard this before. It was a powerful statement from a powerful speaker that said, you got to stop playing God, right? Because you are not good at it, and the position is taken. And that goes for someone else too. What?
I love that. The position's taken.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, sorry, we're not taking applications here today. That job, that role is already taken.
Right.
So once you put down the drugs and you stop playing your own God, stop playing God, it's important that you don't give somebody else that role, a human being. And I think I did that. I've done that. And that's why I can speak about my experience on it. If I don't have experience on something, I'm not going to give you my opinion, but I'm just going to share with you my experience. So anyways, getting back to the 11th step, I just kind of wanted to elaborate on that. And I appreciate your patience with me there. This has been such a learning experience for me. This is great. So the next part of step 11 talks about praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out.
So that's a little like what you were saying before about the foxhole prayers.
Okay.
Right? It's like coming to a place of just praying for God's will. God, show me your will, please, like pray. I want God's will. I don't want to pray for specifics. Yeah, of course I do still, but it's like, let me be okay if this doesn't happen now. Hey God, please, I don't want to get divorced. You know what I mean? But if I do, please let me be okay, because it will be in your will. Let me be okay with your will.
Yeah.
That kind of.
Yeah, let go and let God, really.
Yeah.
Right? It's such a cliche that is it reigns true in this process. Okay, so all right, here's the grand finale step 12. What is step 12 about? What is step 12 says, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So to me, what this sounds like is that we had an aha moment, right? And that we need to go help somebody else, right? Get that freedom that we have. And so it goes back to that word humility and that definition.
Yes.
When someone else's needs become greater than our own.
Right. Yeah. I wasn't I was living a 12 step before I had even gotten there. You know what I mean? But something happens at 12. It talks about the spiritual awakening. And like I said, different levels of freedom. I would call all those different levels of spiritual awakenings for me throughout the step process. So by the time I got into step 12, it wasn't like this big, crazy lightning rod of like spirituality. It was just this, wow, okay, I completed the 12 steps. I never completed anything. You know what I mean? This self-esteem and self-confidence that I had built, that I accomplished this, and then all the things I had learned and all the tools that I had acquired. So that's the spiritual awakening. So now I have all this stuff that I acquired through the first 11 steps. Give it to somebody. Mm-hmm. Sponsor someone. Go to meetings and share. When somebody asks you to freaking speak at a meeting, say yes. Share that hope. Live those principles so you can share real hope. There's a lot of people that just share to share, right? But the step 12 holds the accountability of you have the 12 steps and the principles behind the 12 steps that you're living. Share it, kind of thing.
Sure.
I don't know.
It sounds to me, Desiree, like you found your calling, you found your voice, you found out who you are in this process. Yes. And that's really inspiring to me.
Yes.
Now, I want to talk. Yeah. But before we close out, and we're almost out of time, I do want to talk about life beyond recovery, because we develop lives in here. We get our lives back. And so what kind of gifts are you experiencing today? What kind of things do you like to do that you never knew that you like to do, but you got clean and you did some work and you found you like to paint, or you found you like to run, or whatever you want to talk about? The floor is yours.
I mean, so many gifts. The gifts are endless, and I feel like I'm just now scratching the surface of this journey. I feel like I'm just now starting to really live my life. You know what I mean? I became a mother. I have a son that never has to see me use. I never have to worry about losing my son to the state or wherever they go. You know what I mean? I never have to. It's just with the decisions I talked about, right? Before I found recovery, I slept outside that state-run detox. I had nowhere to live.
Yeah.
I had bought a home for myself. I pay the mortgage by myself. I've become a career woman. I told you guys what I did before I came into recovery. You know what I mean? To not be dope sick. I get to travel. We have, I get to travel to different states, and I'm a compliance officer. I ensure that places are abiding by regulations and state requirements, accreditation bodies, you know what I mean? I was approved to be a surveyor, where I get to go into facilities and accredit them, take them through a survey. The gifts are, I take care of myself. I love myself most days, and it's not based on because I'm getting validation from anybody else. Nothing else. Pain has happened. I have gone through some really painful times. I've shared with you, Aaron. Some things I've gone through.
Sure.
You were there for the whole thing.
Yeah.
But the reality is when all of it's gone, they can take all of this. What is left is I can be with me. I can be with me, and I can be okay. Eventually, it may be painful in the process, but there comes a point that I have these principles and the surrender, and I have the steps where I can be content. If I can be content, and I love that about myself.
Wow. The greatest gift is being okay with self, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being, just being yourself without putting something else in you. Self-love.
Yes, exactly.
It's been such an amazing podcast. I mean, I feel like we could keep talking about all kinds of different stuff, but it's 10 after 10 p.m. and this guy's got to get up for work tomorrow. You probably do as well. We're productive. What'd you say?
I got a little guy waiting for me.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah. So we're both productive members of society today. We can show up for not only ourselves, but, well, I should say not only work, not only our families, but we can show up for ourselves and we can show up for other people and we can be a beacon of hope. And that's what this thing is all about, man. Finding that source of contentment through a God of our understanding that can, check it out, restore us to our sanity and give us that sense of peace and a sound mind. I used to pray for a sound mind. God, just quiet my thoughts. Like, stop this insane thinking I have going on. Just revolving through my sick and twisted perception of how I thought the world was, And I was the victim. And guess what? You said earlier, victims don't recover. So forgive yourself, give yourself a chance, give yourself a break, and be patient. This thing can work for you. Ladies and gentlemen, Desiree M., it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. This has been great. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Aaron, for asking me. I had a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Now, don't hang up, Desiree. Real quick, ladies and gentlemen, next Thursday at 9 p.m., we'll have Susie B. And then June the 7th, very special guest. I'm not going to spoil that for you guys. Spoiler alert. Let's not do that. But yeah, make sure you guys check out the season finale at 11 a.m. on June the 7th, Sunday. Really excited about the guest I have coming on. Got a lot of years clean and a lot of experience, strength, and hope, not only in his recovery, but in his life. He's a well-seasoned man, and I'm not going to say his name. But ladies and gentlemen, don't miss it. A.live podcast. Peace.
Subscribe now at A.live Panda on YouTube.